start. We're definitely at quorum. Just one more director I know. I think Alex is on his way. He said he's going to be 10 to 20 minutes late though. So I think we're going to go ahead and start. So I call this meeting to order at 6:05. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, the territorial acknowledgement. The Board of Directors acknowledges that the University of Waterloo is on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our organization operates on the Haldeman Tract, land promised to 6 nations, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Moving on to the agenda approval. Are there any comments? Or sorry, can I have a seconder for that? Katie? Is there any discussion relating to the agenda? Not seeing anything. I will just say we'll probably have Tam and Jay give their presentation between 3.1 and 3.2 with regards to the co-op reneg. That being said, all those in favor of the agenda as presented, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All those against? All those abstaining? Not seeing any of those. We'll move on to the next item. Are there any directors who wish to declare conflict of interest at this time? Seeing anything, we'll move on. So the minutes has been distributed to all of you. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the minutes of the previous meeting? Not seeing anything, the minutes will stand approved as distributed. Okay, moving on to item 2.1 on our agenda. Stacey, do you want to take it away with your presentation?
Yep, great. Thank you, Rory. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Stacey Sage, Manager Communications and Media Relations here at WUSA. And I'm going to run through our media and digital media policy training tonight. And then following the training, Esther will have a PDF document for you to review, and then also a forms document to sign in agreement. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second here. Everyone can see that okay? Okay, yep. I'm just going to dig in here. All right, so this is the WUSA Media and Digital Media Policy Training. I'm going to start with the Digital Media Policy Training, and then I'll move into the WUSA Media Training. Both are fairly quickly. I think we'll probably be under the 15-minute mark here. So I'm just going to jump in, hopefully. There we go. Okay, so what is the purpose of a digital media policy? Basically, it's an essential tool that acts as a guide in best and worst case scenarios when it comes to using digital and social media to communicate and market. The WUSA policy covers our official WUSA channels. So that's, your at WUSA Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then all of our services channels, including Flock, Stop, and Thrift too. WUSA employees and volunteers are expected to use social media both professionally and personally as a representative of WUSA. This policy helps us maintain WUSA brand identity across all of our channels, so we look nice and professional. It allows us to prevent security violations. It allows us to act fast if a crisis or security violation does happen. It allows us to be upfront with staff and volunteers about their own social media responsibilities, and it allows us to encourage staff to own and amplify WUSA messaging. So just some definitions for folks that are not communication experts. Digital media includes any form of electronic communication through online communities to share information. Digital media platforms include Instagram, Twitter, Threads, which is currently launched, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Discord, and all of the 100+ social channels that are available across the globe. So crisis communications, that's urgent messaging surrounding an event or situation which requires immediate release of information and takes priority over pre-scheduled content. This can include urgent news from the federal or provincial government, news from the university, global or local community impacting events. And the Digital Media Policy Agreement definition. The WUSA Social Media Policy Agreement covers all at yourWUSA and associated channels as well as how employees and volunteers use social media both professionally and personally. WUSA full-time, part-time, co-op staff, and volunteers must sign the policy agreement after reviewing this training. There are some scope and exemptions. So this policy guides WUSA staff, board, and volunteers who are tasked with maintaining social platforms, blogs, and websites on behalf of WUSA. The policy guides organization-wide communication through official at yourWUSA social media channels, blogs, and website properties. Social media profiles for committees, student-run services, or working groups. Individual use of digital media for all staff and volunteers in their capacity as representatives of WUSA. So just so you know, we are not telling you what you can and can't post on your social channels, but we are reminding you to stay professional when you do so as a representative of WUSA. And we also understand that you may get passionate or political on your own accounts, and that's okay. Do so thoughtfully as to not disrupt any behind the scenes work or relationships being built. And then for exemption, the election communication, both candidates and referendum committees are guided by the elections and referendum procedure. Okay, so just in recap, if you're going to post on behalf of WUSA, you need special training and approval to do so. And chances are you're on my team or a coordinator for services. And official or not, inappropriate posts, comments, and callouts could damage the association's reputation, your colleagues' reputation, or your own. So think twice before you post, protect privacy, and respect the policy. And always remember your not-for-profit advocacy association responsibilities. Any questions? Okay, super easy. The next one is the WUSA media training. This one's a little bit more straightforward. So this is just the process for engaging with the media along with general tips for issues management and dealing with the press. Being a spokesperson is an exciting experience and we welcome media engagement. So here's what you are going to need to know to feel prepared. So rules for engagement. It's really, really easy. Please don't engage with the media directly or provide a statement before connecting with WUSA Media Relations. So if someone from the media does contact you directly, please reach out to me immediately, and then we can discuss those next steps. And we'll work together to ensure your statement lands how you and WUSA intends it to. So again, we don't want to completely tell you what to say. We're here to help coach, train, give you tips and tricks, and make you feel really comfortable so you feel set up for success to talk to media, because it can be a little nerve-wracking from time to time. So press possibilities, just a little overview of what this may look like. The outlets that we typically work with would include Imprint, The Cord, Waterloo Region Record, Waterloo Chronicle, Community Edition, CBC, CTV, 570 News, and 89.1 CBC Morning Edition with Craig Norris. This also could look like an opportunity where the University of Waterloo gets in touch and wants to do an article or wants a statement for something that they're working on, say for housing or for wellness. We also ask that you get in touch if they've reached out, just so that we can make sure we're all aligned in our messaging. And just some general tips and tricks, which if you do get the opportunity, we'll reiterate these. At the end of the day, you're the expert. If you've been asked to be the spokesperson, we're just here to help. Once the media opportunity has been confirmed, we'll work together to set you up for success. And just some general tips: be friendly and succinct in your answers. Have stats and data ready to go, which we'll work on together if needed. Emphasize organizational solutions. We definitely avoid trashing any organizations, politicians, and the university. And then we like to use anecdotes if related, because storytelling is really captivating. And then be prepared. So in closing, press opportunities are an excellent chance for WUSA to highlight our advocacy work, build credibility, and generate awareness around the issues we are here to address. Being a spokesperson is a great opportunity for you to gain experience working with the press. It looks great on a resume and can support your future work. Remember, it is important for us as WUSA representatives to be strategic and aligned with our messaging. And if you are called upon to be a spokesperson, you will be treated as a subject matter expert. And WUSA Communications is here to get you ready for your interview and set you up for success. Any questions on the media training? No? Okay. I think that covers my part.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no questions, we'll move on to item 3.1 on our agenda. So this is an update on communication between student governments and at-large students. This one is submitted by Jay. Can I have a seconder for that? Matthew? Sadly, I don't think Jay is with us at the moment, so I don't think he can start this off. So I guess I'll just pose this question to staff who are here with us. Has there been any changes since the last meeting with regard to this item?
I know that when we are at our last meeting and was asked to reach out to Melissa and get a little bit of an update. So I do have one, which I'll read if everyone's okay with that. So basically said pretty much that we, in terms of her team, had said that they'd ensure all board meetings were listed on our events calendar and shared on social leading up to board meetings. And we do a monthly recap in student-friendly language about what happened at board meetings. We have been keeping up with both of those, plus attempting board member introductions for those of you who have provided comms with the information requested, which I'm assuming is a little bit of a, for me to maybe mention that if you haven't, please do so. and using storytelling where we can to share more info on ADVO related items that stem from board decisions and the annual plan. So the second part is she mentioned that our comms plan for the upcoming year will, which I believe she has in draft and it's expected in the next couple of weeks to hopefully finalize, will outline some additional ways that they will attempt to inform and engage students about the work of the board and the channels in which they plan to focus those communications, essentially web, email, Twitter, and LinkedIn. This plan will also outline the same for other areas of the org, obviously, that they're also responsible for, as board is one piece of the overall picture. So I'm happy to take any questions and take them back to Melissa, and or not sure whether you'd rather wait to see what the comms plan looks like in a little bit more detail, but open for that.
Are there any questions? Not seeing any. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns relating to this item 3.1 on the agenda? Not seeing any. So Jay has just let me know over Teams that he's not likely to make it to this meeting. So, Dan, do you feel comfortable giving an update on the co-op remake situation before we move to item 3.2?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, Alana, I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind. One sec. There it is. Okay. And just to check, can everyone see? Thanks, Katie. Okay, so Jay and I met with the undergraduate VPAs and senators on Saturday. Before that meeting, with Jeff's help, we have this document with some questions to help get the discussion going. The overall consensus following that meeting and among our own discussion is that the change is honestly necessary. The CE is losing a lot of employer relations when students are reneging. The issue is that it's very harmful for students because it's putting them in a place where they can't say no, even though they might not, the compensation, for example, is not what was advertised during the interview process, or it's not something they can move to, or they'll end up in situations where it's, I don't know, it's more extreme situations where they have to quit or they're fired for things out of their control. So when we spoke with CE on this, and you might remember last week, and their general consensus is when these things happen, they want to take it just to Policy 70 or a Policy 70 committee who decide on these things. But the issue with Policy 70 is that it often takes a long time and students are kind of left in a state of limbo, so to speak, where they can't really look for jobs because of that issue with the employers can't get the tax credits, but they also can't go and but they also just can't go and take classes or anything like that. So when we met with the VPAs and the student leaders, what we did was we started like a brainstorming session, which I can get to over here, on situations where reneges should be punished and where they can't. We looked at what we know from CEE, and in general, you can see over here, just like I said, it's in bad faith that students aren't, sorry, my mouth is dry, that students are being punished in general. So you can see some of the action items that the student representatives came up with, which is one of the issues that was brought up was immigration, one of the representatives, and we don't have confirmation on this. They might get deported, apparently, if they're getting reneged and they can't find a job. So we want to talk to immigration consultants about what it actually means to be reneged and being in that place where you can't study, but you also can't work. There are things like making, right now, if you've done the co-op hunt this term, you might have noticed that when you get to the ranking page, there's now a column for compensation and a column for location. But they're planning on keeping that not mandatory, optional for like 3 terms just to see what happens, which once again leaves students vulnerable because those are 2 really big factors for when they're choosing jobs. So making that mandatory. The student leaders suggest that we should prevent students, that CE should not prevent students from enrolling a full-time course load. That is, again, like the immigration issue, something we'd have to look more into because I'm pretty sure that's not quite how it works. So in general, that's what the students want. And then this, with Jeff's help, thank you, Jeff. This is what we were thinking, some more attainable things we can do with the information we currently have, which again goes back to mandatory compensation, location, equipping students with policy someday, because like I said again, CE's solution to all the issues that were brought up is basically file a petition, but again, that takes ages. Students don't realize or recognize what makes a good petition, what should be included in it. Most of them don't even know that's an option. We put out a survey, which I will go over the results for. So a big part of what we think should be changed is equipping students with that information, which you can read over here. Sorry, I should have sent this out earlier. It was a bit last minute. And yeah, so then going to student responses. So keep in mind, this is the same survey we just sent out super quickly before the last board meeting, since that's when it came out. So it's mostly Eng students and mostly math students. It's not representative of WUSA's membership as a whole. But in general, if you look at the responses, it's mostly students misunderstanding what's going on, which brings up a communication issue. And it's a lot of students being worried about what happens when they're in a bad place. Students talking about, sorry, again, my mouth is very dry. There are students who understand that it is necessary. It's just, again, not done well.
Is now joining.
So Rory, Jay, and I met yesterday, and we think you may see from the motion. I'll stop sharing now. Thank you. Is that we want to amend this a little bit rather than doing a working group. Since we met with them over the weekend, rather than a formal committee, we were thinking about bringing this to advocacy committee. Since, this is a big part of advocacy, we think you can already see we have somewhat of a formal document lined up. We just want to, that document was outlined before the meeting, and now we have some feedback from student representatives, the VPAs, the senators. So we were thinking about taking this to advocacy committee, having them go through it, getting a little bit of support from staff on how to create a nice formal letter. Right now our contact in CEE is Gabrielle Smith. She is the, if I remember her title correctly, student experience manager. She's very lovely, but she's not the person in charge of these changes, and she's also away for most of this week. So we want to be able to get in contact with someone higher up or like more involved with these decisions. So the idea now is we advocacy committee met very recently, so we'd call a special meeting next week
Is now exiting.
to bring to their to bring to their attention and to get some staff help on really developing this, expanding on some of those questions and those details that we don't necessarily have. And then so the Renee consequences go into place during fall, which at this point is about 6 weeks away, a little bit more. So try and push that through advocacy committee as quickly as possible whilst keeping up the quality so that we can present it to CE and hopefully get some things working before next term comes and the next co-op hunt starts. All right, that was a lot of talking. Does anyone have any questions? I could also put that doc in chat if you want to. I should have done that when I started. I'll put that in chat for anyone who wants to comb through it.
Yes, that might be nice. Are there any questions for him or? Okay.
Not really a question, but a point of clarification with regards to the motion from last week, which I know got really confusing.
I think we're just talking about the presentation now, and then that'll be the next item on the agenda.
Okay.
We can do it that way. Are there any questions specifically relating to the presentation that Tam gave? No. So then we'll move on to number 3.2. Can I have a seconder? Kevin? And then you can go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah. I think my intention with the working group got a little bit muddled and confused. Intention was not for it to be a specific working group, but to use that.
Sandra. You have something to add now, Sandra?
No, is it Stephanie? Let Stephanie finish.
Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, it was more so a response and a recognition that there is currently a gap when it comes to WUSA's ability to communicate and coordinate with the senators and BPAs, because there's a lot of settings in which we're in the same room as them where they're also going to be primary advocates in a lot of conversations, and having some level of organization, being on the same page, but also making sure that they're aware of different academic processes and aware of how things work. So it was just an attempt to have some sort of group where we could have discussion. I don't disagree with going forward with having this refined and sent to the advocacy committee. I think that's a good idea. I will sort of state, though, that I think that the product that was produced by the senators and the BPAs here, like, it's a little rough around the edges, but it's still good. We got people talking, discussing. There was information exchange, so people are aware of the issue where it might have only been engineering aware of the issue before, right? So now all of the sort of important folks who sit on committees are aware of the issue, and they got to ask questions and they got to say their piece. So I still think it's important to have some sort of group like that. It doesn't need to necessarily impact board's decision, but I think it's an important resource, and I think it's just important to be engaging with other student leaders like that. So I guess I would ask that. Can I see the motion again? Sorry, can someone click on the motion? My laptop is dead.
Sorry, Sandra, did you want to speak first?
No, it's okay. Just pull the motion up because my comments are around what you might want to do with the motion given the presentation that you just had. So let Stephanie finish. She's on a roll.
I guess I'm a little bit confused right now. Are we still planning on striking, or when you say strike, do you mean get rid of, or?
I guess then I will jump in. Based on the presentation that you just heard, there was work that was put together and an acknowledgement that you really didn't need another working group, but it was to go to the advocacy committee. So my suggestion would be, if the author of the motion is willing to just withdraw this particular motion, and what you're dealing with is the recommendation that the group said to have it referred to the advocacy committee for finalization. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's what you can do from a process standpoint, and then not debate this motion. If you want to keep it going, then I would defeat the motion.
Maybe I'll ask the question then, because this was a motion that was originally tabled at the last board meeting. And so it says on this agenda that it was submitted by the chair. So would it be the person who initially brought up the motion at the last board meeting who would withdraw it?
If there's consensus on it, because it's identically the motion from the last meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Mic check. I'm not, maybe I should let Steph respond to this one, but I think we might be mixing the two things here. Like for the specific issue we're dealing with right now, everything has already been sort of said, where it'll probably go towards advocacy committee. But I think, and again, Steph, please correct me if I'm wrong, we still identified a need for some type of body like this, where we can interact with student leaders from our constituent societies and the senators for similar situations like this in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was my understanding that last meeting that this motion had passed, and the thing that we were saving until next meeting was like the addition of someone else to the committee, or we got into some really weird territory there. But if it's a case that this group was not created, and I would ask that we do create this group, I don't think that necessitates that the work that Tom and Jay did, that it doesn't go to the advocacy committee, because I think that could be just done. Like I'm thinking of these two things as basically separate, but I think that this was a demonstration that it is useful and helpful to bring these groups together, and that there's some onus and responsibility to have a group like this. And I think it's important for board to recognize that there is currently a gap in terms of achieving our representative function and being more effective in advocacy. Bringing those groups of folks to the table to communicate is really important. So if Rory is withdrawing that motion, I am tabling that motion. I mean, yeah.
Again, I don't know whose job it. I think you'd have to be unanimous to be able to be withdrawn, first of all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Jay.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was on the mute. I'm not sure if some can mention this already. So I hope we can respond to this in a timely manner. And my concern if we delegate this item to the advocacy committee is that we might have some delays, some bureaucracies maybe come up, and because this is a very time sensitive issue, and I understand this is a very operational issue. But if the operation fails, it's time for board to intervene. Yesterday I met with Rory and Sam to talk about this. Like during that meeting, I think it's okay to delegate the advocacy committee to do it. But after that meeting, I have another thought. I have a second thought. It's like it's the best option for us to actually form this working group right now, consisting just of members to solve this issue. I think that might be the fastest way we can handle this issue right now.
Sandra's next, actually. Sandra, do you have a comment you'd like to add?
Thanks. Just to, again, going from the process pieces of the new structure you're trying to put in place, working groups can be established. The board has that ability all the time. There needs to be terms of reference, though, that are created, because you don't want to create a group that doesn't have a purpose and continuing on. So that's missing from this particular motion. So just even if the minutes just note that if you end up passing the motion, that you'll develop the relevant terms of reference. And because you're including the VP academics of the various student societies, you're probably going to have to get their agreement that they want to be part of a working group. So just from a process standpoint.
In regards to how this played out and the sequence of events or actions that should have been taken in terms of procedure, just having discussions with staff, Brennan, having some talks with Jill about how this could have gone. For example, let's say, Jay, you found out about the co-op situation a few days prior to the board meeting. Then let's say the next immediate step would be to go to the chair and vice chair of the advocacy committee, and then they would meet with, let's say, a staff member, and then immediately begin a process of preparing an advocacy stance, which could go to the advocacy committee. I think, since I would like to take a little bit of responsibility in the sense that I am currently the chair of the advocacy committee, but due to the fact that I guess you could say I'm still unaware about the correct procedure, especially to respond to something that came up so suddenly, that was probably slightly my fault in terms of what could have been done in that situation, rather than us having to go through different motions, and then the possibility of different working groups or ad hoc committees. I would like to say, though, I do think that the best course of action should be directed to the advocacy committee, because a lot of the stuff that we will talk about throughout the rest of the year will be directed under that. But since the committee, I think we just met last week, the timing itself was a little bit sudden. So in response to that, that is the correct procedure I think we can take going forward. I'm done now.
Sandra?
I just wanted to comment on Katie's comment about urgent issues, and urgent issues are often going to come up with the board once your agenda's gone out. So it is important to get that process in place. And if it's something that comes directly to the board, the chair still has the ability to bring something up so that you can be dealing with time-sensitive issues. But you've all got to agree on how you're going to do that.
I was just going to suggest that we try and split up the conversation a little, because I think Jay is specifically referring to what do we do with the reneging, and I'm trying to get across more broadly that I think it's like this group ought to exist. So if we can maybe focus on let's focus on the co-op one first and then move to the other one. I don't know. That's fine.
Just for a little bit more added context, if this is brought to advocacy committee, ideally next week, we'd also be inviting the VP academics and undergraduate senators as guests.
Katie? I'm not sure if that would be under the terms of reference or like what the correct procedure for that would be. Is Esther in the meeting?
I asked Esther.
You can bring in students to attend actually the committee meetings, just like the board meeting is open to students to watch on YouTube. So the committee meetings, you can actually invite all the students to attend, but they won't be able to vote at the meeting.
In that case, like that would be possible if I think potentially what we could do, and I know we have more to discuss around this, is that if we just decide to, let's say, bring this back to advocacy committee, me, them, and Jill, we can, and Esther, we can meet, discuss the possibility of developing an advocacy stance, and then Esther, if I'm right, within the terms of reference, I can call a meeting before the next committee meeting, if I am correct. And that could possibly be, maybe not next week, because I think there's an amount of days beforehand, but please tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes, you can.
Okay. So I think if that's the plan, if we're going to separate out these two things, then I'm going to propose a motion. So be it resolved that the board tasks the advocacy committee with a review of the work done by Pam and Jay, consult with students, and create formal policy positions for board to approve. Can I have a seconder for that? Matthew? Is there any discussion on that item? I'm not seeing anything. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Wait, sorry, what's the motion on the floor right now?
So the motion is, be it resolved that the board task the advocacy committee with the review of work done by Cam and Jay, consult with students, and create formal policy positions for board to approve. Okay, sorry. Let's go back to that. All those in favor, please raise their hand again. My apologies. There was discussion, Jay. I'm not sure if you missed that part. All those opposed?
No, I mean discussion after the introduction of the motion.
I believe I did ask. And nobody raised their hand, so I apologize if you didn't get the chance to discuss it, but we are now in voting, so I apologize. All those abstaining? Not seeing any. So I saw one abstention there from Jay, or sorry, one opposed from Jay.
No,
Okay.
I'm in favor.
Pardon?
I'm in favor.
He's in favor.
You're in favor? Okay. Apologies.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't see any opposed or abstaining then. Okay. So then getting back to the original motion presented. Okay.
Aileen says in favor.
Yeah, that's that. Okay. So then the motion that is still on the floor is, be it resolved that the WUSA board direct a working group called the Academic Affairs Advisory Committee that shall consist of relevant directors, the president, vice president, undergrad senators, and the VP academics of the student societies, with the explicit purpose of information sharing and strategizing over academic and co-op advocacy initiatives. That is the current motion still on the floor. Would anyone like to speak to that motion?
Again, just to summarize, there is a need to coordinate amongst these different folks who are involved in advocacy that happens on our campus, because it is more than just WUSA Central having a seat on the table, right? And also we need a source for information sharing out, but also in terms of what's going on, understanding, and we need a place to support student leaders so that they can get a better understanding of how academic advocacy works, how advocacy works in general, how all these processes work. The only reason I ever got to the point where I am with understanding how all these policies work is because there was a group like this where we could have discussions and engage. So again, this doesn't bind board to doing anything, but it provides us a place to have discussions. And if we remember from the conversations that we had last meeting, co-op student council being run by co-op now, there was an identified issue where students didn't feel as if they had the space to strategize or discuss things. So we have heard from the BPAs that there is a need and an interest in this. So I would ask us to create this because I do think this is how we engage in effective advocacy and how we engage with the other student leaders. I think to just not talk to them, not engage with them is not using all our resources and is not giving them due respect. So again, I ask you to support this motion.
Thanks. Just wanted to add that in the informal meeting that happened between the VPAs and senators and whatnot, when we brought up that this was going to be a motion at the next board meeting, they all expressed a strong interest in something like this to continue because I guess when issues like this pop up, that would be an appropriate forum, not only to sort of gather thoughts of other student leaders, but also to have a more representative opinion on different matters as well, and sort of be closer to students in that way.
Katie?
I would like to propose an amendment to the motion. The amendment would be removing the word strategizing, sorry, I cannot say that, and maintaining the rest of the motion. Should I speak to that or can I just leave that that?
You can leave it at that. Can I have a seconder for that? Yes, I can second it. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Katie?
The reason why I want to remove that word in particular is because it's not that I don't recognize the purpose of having the group in itself, and I think information sharing is really important. But if we include the word strategizing, then we're, by technicality, including a lot of VP academics and other members who are part of different societies who have their own vested interests into something that could come back to our board, which I don't think is perhaps the best course of action. I think if we want to tackle one of the main problems, which we outlined before, which was the communication issue around what was happening with co-op, then the working group in itself should be one that revolves around the idea of communication and information sharing. But I don't think strategizing is appropriate to have for a working group if we have lots of other members from different societies discussing something that could be done by staff members or through our different committees.
Yes.
The issue is that a lot of conversations where we have influence or opportunities where we can influence, it's not only us doing it, right? At Senate, it's Rory's vote, but also the other senators. At Co-op Student Council, it's Thumb and Jay, but also the BPAs, right? Like, if they're going to be part of the discussion, if they're going to have an influence, I think it's important to coordinate and strategize with them.
It's not that I disagree, but I think the purpose of that working group should be more for informed decisions, where the VP academics will report back to the society presidents and make that conclusion on what action that they would like to take as a society themselves, rather than be put into the committee and kind of make, not saying that collaboration and unity in a strategy, let's say tackle an issue regarding academics is a bad thing, but I think giving them the liberty of just having it as an information sharing group could prove more beneficial than one where it's also used for strategy. So that's my thought regarding it.
I guess I asked then where is the place at those conversations in advance to meetings and sort of understanding what direction we're planning on going. Like, I don't think that it is genuinely a problem if like, again, they will give their piece, their opinion. In terms of what WUSA does, it's whoever is going to the meetings and the staff's decision, right? Like, they will say their piece, and maybe we want to adopt that, and maybe we don't. But I mean, ultimately, they're students, they're part of our ecosystem, they impact a lot. I think it's important to help coordinate and organize them and provide a forum for those discussions to occur. Because if we're not providing that specific place for it to happen, it's going to happen offline. They're just going to talk to each other independently, but it's going to be very, you're going to have certain societies talk to each other and not bother with others. And I think it's important to have a coordinated, dedicated place to talk about what we as student advocates want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, just to quickly add on, this is my fault for missing this earlier, but was the original motion that we tabled not for a standing committee, not a working group?
Under our current policy manual, there is no such thing as a standing committee and not a working group. You can only make ad hoc committees. That clarifies, maybe?
Just to address Steph's point again, I think it's very evident that each society faces different problems throughout the year and different outcomes for what they want to see for their different student populations in that faculty. So I guess you could say that is why I see those, not saying I don't believe in the working group in itself, but I believe maybe those conversations between the different faculties are best held offline. My other concern with having the word strategize or strategy involved in the working group itself is that I would hate to give the impression to different VP academics and other people who are attending the meeting that whatever strategy is discussed within that meeting will be immediately, let's say, adopted into WUSA, or giving them that representation and that voice where they don't actually see that much come from it on our side. So that's just my concern. I think I'm done talking about this right now.
Sandra?
I'll just offer a comment. Because it's involving other than WUSA, you aren't obligated to call a committee. Even if it's a working group or an ad hoc committee, that becomes part of your corporate governance structure. And I'm not hearing what I'm hearing you say is you want to have a forum where you can bring the VP academics, undergrad senators, all those that might be involved in a particular issue. What WUSA could do rather than establishing a solid working group, because working groups, remember, can only bring recommendations, and they bring recommendations to the board. So I'm hearing you talk about information sharing, potentially needing to strategize, come up with ideas that may go back to the respective boards. So you could choose to just say, this is a commitment we want to make. WUSA will take the lead in establishing a regular time to bring those individuals that you talked about together, because you're not giving them you're not really giving them a purpose. You're trying to create a forum for them to speak. So if you do that, you're not making it part of your corporate structure, and still accomplishing everything that I'm hearing all of you say that you want to do. There is a lot of merit in bringing that group together, no question, about issues. My 2 cents.
Okay, sounds good. Jeff?
Thanks. Just wanted to add that board standing committees are part of the board policy manual, and they're explicitly for the purposes of permanent committees established by the board, reading straight from the policy manual, to assist the board in continuing manner, et cetera, et cetera. The difference between that and a working group or an ad hoc committee is the permanent nature versus the temporary nature, which I think is more in line with what Steph intended. I also will add that I think what Sandra says potentially makes a lot of sense. Sorry, am I getting lost? Oh, thanks. Sorry, Rory, what was that?
Sorry, Jeff, you can continue. Rory used this on a phone call, so
Oh, my bad.
You can say what you have to say.
Yeah, that was about it. I think what Sandra says makes sense, might be an avenue we want to consider, but if we do go with some sort of official body, I think Steph's original intention was for this to be a standing committee of board.
All right. Rory has now left the vicinity, and I guess I now have to leave the meeting. Is there anyone else who wants to discuss the amendment that I had put forward? And if not, we'll take a vote on that. And then if the amendment passes or fails, we'll go back to the original motion. So any more discussion? All right, I do not see any more discussion. I'm going to do this. I don't have a pen. All right, so now we'll vote on the amendment to the motion where we remove the word strategizing. So the official motion with the amendment would be it resolved that the WUSA board strike a working group called the Academic Affairs Advisory Committee that shall consist of relevant directors, the president, vice president, undergraduate senators, and the VP academics of the student societies with the explicit purpose of information sharing over academic and co-op advocacy initiatives. And that is including the amendment. So we'll vote on the amendment. So can I have all of those who are in favor, please raise your hand. I'm seeing 4 hands. Okay, please lower your hands. I have all of those against. Please raise your hand. Sorry, Alex, did you put your hand up for?
That was 4. Yes.
Okay, sorry. And then I think we have 3 against. Can I have all of those who abstain? Okay. I have 4 for, and I have 3 against. So I believe the motion passes.
We say that abstentions
Sorry.
were.
Abstentions? Yes.
Abstentions are no, right?
Abstentions are no. So that means it's 4-4 and technically 4 against, and it's a tie.
You need 1 plus 2 for it to pass.
1 plus to pass. So that means the amendment fails. And now we will vote on the original motion then. Sorry, I forgot what we do with a tie. That caught me off guard.
Yeah. It's.
Goes the runner.
Yeah. All right. So now we will vote on the motion as presented. So the original motion is be resolved that the WUSA board strike a working group called the Academic Affairs Advisory Committee that shall consist of relevant directors, the president, vice president, undergraduate senators, and the VP academics of the student societies with the explicit purpose of information sharing and strategizing over academic and co-op advocacy initiatives. All right. Can I have all of those who are for the original motion, please raise your hand. Okay. Whoa. We have 9 for. Can I have all of those who are against, please raise your hand.
You become here again in the middle of the vote.
In the middle of the vote. It's okay. We're going to continue because the motion will pass anyways. And then can I have all of those who abstain, please raise your hand. That means the motion presented for changes to co-op search process by CEE that was submitted by the chair has passed. Sorry, I scribbled. The amendment failed and the motion passed.
It's a working group then?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Sorry, a quick question before we proceed. Is that okay? Hello?
Go ahead.
So, Steph, are you as the chair of the advocacy committee? Are you gonna lead the co-op issue for the winner?
I'm not chair of the advocacy committee. That's Katie.
Oh, I thought. So, who is the chair of the advocacy committee?
I'm the chair.
Rory?
No, Katie is the chair.
I know I don't ignore it.
If or just use the right.
Katie is chair and I'm vice chair, so we can both work on this with Jill and Esther a little bit later.
Business.
Andrew, this is a question for you. No amendment was made with regards to the terms of reference. So then what are the terms of reference then for this committee?
So now I was just starting. Sorry. Just putting it in chat for you. Good practice would now be to ask the governance committee to put the terms of reference together for the working group so that you've got them on record. So you've got some consistency with it based on the conversation that you've had today.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on to item number 4.1 on the agenda, which is a presentation about the student lounge project. Kumar, are you
Hi.
ready?
Yes, the study lounge project today.
Oh, the study lounge.
Study
Yes, right.
lounge. Yes. Just share my screen. Present in Teams. Let's see if that works. Okay. Hello, everyone. So today I'm giving a project update of the Student Life Center room 3106 study lounge update. This was a project that started a little over a year ago in one of our first rooms that we took on to start renovations in accordance to the SLC strategic plan that calls for a lot of this work. So a little bit of background. Sorry, can you see this the slide deck?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So a little bit of background on the project. Again, I hope everyone took some time and was able to review the document that was submitted in regards to this motion. But I'll go over the background of the project. So our WUSA Planning Space and Students Works Committee approved $120,000 from our Student Life Center Maintenance Fund in 2022 to begin refurbishing the Student Life Center room 3106, in addition to second and third floor common areas of the old section of the Student Life Center. So last summer of 2022, we saw that room get new carpeting and painting, in addition to the entire common areas of the second and third floor of the Student Life Center, the old section, getting new carpeting to kind of match the expansion that we got. And also give that a little bit of an update. Upon completion of the carpeting project, the committee also approved $250,000, which was an estimate at that time that we took for further enhancements to the electrical, lighting, and furnishings of room SLC 3106. So since then, we've engaged with our contractors and procurement department, and as a common theme with many other projects that I've been bringing back to this table, due to inflationary and just labor increases with materials and labor, the project does require some additional funding for it to continue with its original scope of $65,000, and that's what we're coming to you today to ask for. So again, a little bit of the project efforts. So this is in for the third floor, room 3106. Some things that we were gonna be taking on after the carpeting and painting, which has already been completed, is the tinting and filming of windows. There's a lot of windows in that room that had let in a lot of sunlight, so that room had a lot of temperature fluctuations. So that was one of the first things on the list. Upgrade the lighting fixtures themselves, provide energy efficient solutions. The biggest pain point being students needing more outlets to charge their devices, whether it be laptops or cell phones. We had less than 10 outlets with a new space having 60 plus outlets, so an outlet for every student that's studying in that room. And finally, upgrading our furnishings to provide modern and comfortable seating, upgrading seating styles for multi-use seating, including single pods, group study tables, and booth style seating. So for anyone that hasn't seen the room, there's a picture of the room. So it has been freshly painted and there's new carpets. But if we take a look, if you look at the lighting fixtures up at the top, they're quite outdated lighting fixtures. The furnishings in the room, they're temporary furnishings. They're old exam tables and plastic chairs, and very few outlets in that space currently. We already did the windows upgrade, so they did get their tinting, so that is helping a lot with the temperature in that room. Again, just taking a look at some of the old lighting fixtures, they're halogen bulbs. They buzz, they make a buzzing noise. They're not energy efficient, and they're not dimmable and stuff for depending on different types of the day, and they all emit the same type of light. So something that we're looking forward to replacing these fixtures with is some modern LED fixtures that do provide a little bit more lighting control. They emit more lighting, they use less energy, and provide a little bit more of an aesthetic lift to the space as well. And then updates to our seating. So updating a lot of seating to some modern seating solutions in that room. So again, some of the seating that have already been successful in new parts of our building, including the egg chairs and these Brody club chairs, will be furnishing this room with, in addition to these pod type study capsules. They're quite popular and well received in the libraries, and we're hoping to deploy that in our room as well as there's some booths as well going for some study booths. So some really good aesthetically and functional and comfortable furnishings that we're going to be looking forward to. So again, $65,000 is what we're hoping to get the approval on, plus an additional 5% contingency in the overall project, just in case there are any additional curveballs that do come our way. Again, that 5% would only be used for contingency and to make sure that we stay within current scope and meet it. Just for your information, the SLC Maintenance Fund, it's a separate fund dedicated to enhance and catch us up in areas of the SLC and modernizing it, is sitting at $633,000 in available funds as of April 20th of this year. Project timelines, we're hoping to complete this fall by the late fall 2023, so we should have that space opened and functional by the end of this year. And once this project is underway, and we'll also be mapping out the next one or two portions of the building that we'll be tackling, because one big thing is we need to make sure we put this money to work, because we're collecting an SLC maintenance fund, so we have to make sure that we're delivering to our membership and making those enhancements. Upcoming, we have bathrooms that we need to renovate in the Student Life Center, and some other meeting rooms and common spaces as well. And that's everything I have today. And I'm happy to take any questions, concerns, comments.
Okay. Katie?
Just, I guess you could say a quick question of curiosity is, I'm aware that the SLC Lounge has specific times it's operational from. Like, for example, I believe it closes at 9 p.m. at night. If you make adjustments or enhancements to the room itself, would considering expanding the hours that space is open for student use be considered as well?
So normally those spaces have been closed down during later at night. Those are things we can reevaluate just based on the available amount of common seating after hours in the rest of the building. For a safety reason, we do close certain sections of the building just because, if there's 2 students that are studying or 1 student in the corner of the building late night, it does pose added risk to us operationally because we only have 1 to 2 turnkey staff working and monitoring that entire 200,000 square foot building. So that is a bit of an operational challenge that we have that we mitigate by closing off sections of the building. But if their demands have increased and whatnot, then we can definitely look at it. But currently, there is enough seating in the evening hours in the Great Hall, in the food court, and so forth.
Any questions? Matthew?
I just have a couple points to bring up. Firstly, in the posted action item report, I'm just seeing it says this 16% increase. I'm not sure if that's something that's going to be important to change. It just does it.
Yeah, sorry, that was an error. It's actually a 26% increase.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, that was on the slide deck. It's correct. I wasn't able to. That was an oversight on my end. I apologize.
Next, I'm just curious what exactly would be taken away from the project if the 65,000 was not approved.
Yeah, so we did look. The best way we can kind of, I don't know the terminology, value engineer the project is taking a significant reduction in the lighting package that we have. We can revert back to kind of more office type lighting, kind of what you might see above your in the ceiling right now. Again, functionally would emit the same amount of light, but does not necessarily give that added layer of that new look that we're hoping for to bring to our spaces and bring more of a modern feel to the old parts of our building.
So is it mainly the lighting then?
I'm sorry?
Would it be mainly the lighting for that cost?
It would be, yeah. One of the quickest ways we can reduce the cost is changing the lighting package to a much more standard lighting package. There's a trade-off there. It wouldn't be the full 65,000 discounted. I think our estimate there is about 30 to 40,000 that we would be able to discount the project by changing the scope, reducing the scope to lighting.
Okay. One more point. I'm not sure if this is specific to this project, but why do costs keep going up? Is there a way that we can have a contract set in before the project is started in the future?
Yeah, so a lot of the projects, they were kind of, especially the fund is fairly new. This is one of the first projects on this fund, and we didn't want to take on too many projects or start too many until we got one underway. Everything that I've been bringing, and I know it's a constant theme, I keep coming back asking for more money, right? A lot of our projects that have started were in the middle of COVID or and whatnot, and a lot of those estimates that we took were as best educated estimates that we could based on previous projects pre-COVID. I think we're going to be bringing a little bit more conservative or not conservative, I guess more larger or more in our future projects. We will be speccing in that increased cost so we don't have to keep coming back and go back and forth. So that is very noted on my end, and trust me, I don't like to whip up these presentations and giving you the updates that asking for more money always sucks, but yeah, we are going to hopefully tighten up on that and factor in some of the percentage increases that we've seen looking ahead.
So one quick question, clarification. Kumar, do we not get those estimates from the university when we scope stuff out, and then we kind of have to have an estimate and then get? Okay.
We do, depending on the project. This one we made the estimate. I'm not going to pass this one on the university. We took that. Yeah.
I thought we had to have an estimate and an amount approved before the university would allow us to go out to a request for proposal, which is when we find the actual cost. So
yeah, we did engage with them, and they said 250,000 seems about right. I mean, it would be nice if we had a little bit more updated costs, but I am working on getting kind of putting together like current cost per square foot based on post-COVID and all that for our future efforts, so we can kind of extrapolate ahead more accurately.
Any other questions? Matthew?
Just a question for Kumar. Are you like kind of the centralized project manager for all of this who works with different contractors, or do we have like
no? So we have, so what we do is we work with get the tape measure out. We work with University of Waterloo, like we're bound by their working with their plant operations team for any renovations that happen to our building. It's still considered University of Waterloo infrastructure, so we have to work with them. What happens is, generally speaking, they help us gather our requirements for where we want to take the space. So in this case, we worked with their electrical lead and their furnishings lead, because those were the two main parts of this project. We want electric outlets, and we wanted new furnishings and new lighting. So we engaged with them. They kind of help put our requirements, seek quotes from vendors, and bring it back to us for that approval. So yeah, we work with UW, and then they usually assign a project manager to manage the project in the day-to-day, working with the contractor, the general contractor, and so forth. Yeah. We're the client, so we do have monthly or weekly meetings depending on which stage the project is at with UW Forces and their design coordinator to make sure that we're kept up to date with where the projects are at.
Just a question regarding the seatings. Like, are we adding those seats? Like, are we trying to increase the capacity?
It's a great question. There is a little bit of a reduction in the net amount of new seating that is going in. So prior to kind of what the temporary seating that was put in, it was very, very congested, and it was just tables with 8 chairs around it, tables with 8 chairs around it, tables with 8 chairs around it. With a little bit of a lounge seating that we're putting in, that gives some students the ability to privately study in the capsules in the booths. It's almost like business class takes up more space. Some of our seating fixtures do take up more space, so hence less seats. But so there is about a 25-30 seat reduction net in the space. We were close to 100, and right now we're close to 70. But a lot more comfortable seating for the students.
Any other questions? Alex?
Pardon me. I know Katie already mentioned it, but if we're going down in seating, and I don't know if it's just my luck that I'm always there when it's congested and a nightmare to find a seat. But
yeah.
If we're going down in seating, I don't know if this is related, but is it really possible to extend those hours more? Because it'll be great for those 70 students.
So we're actually going to see a net additional of, because right now there might be like 20 to 30 seats scattered in that room. So compared to what's right now, we're going to see a net increase. But compared to pre-COVID, it's a little bit of a decrease. Does that make sense? So we're actually going to see a net increase right now. The temporary seating is very temporary and not functional. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Also add for context too, in the pre-COVID seating with that layout, as you folks can probably imagine, all of those seats were never occupied because people didn't want to sit next to each other. Right. And so from a physical seat count, absolutely it's decreasing, but the new redesign, all of those seats will most likely be able to be occupied and be able to be more flexible to seat every group's needs coming in, as opposed to, I mean, anybody who's been to Dana Porter, trying to find a table to sit at there's one person occupying an 8-person table and you're not getting in there, that's also what was happening in that space pre-COVID as well. So seat counts for sure, but usability will go up with this new design.
That clears it up because I wasn't a student.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, though that's a very good point.
Are there any last questions? Not seeing any. Now, was there an official motion that went along with this presentation?
Yeah, it was in the bottom of the, I forgot that form that I filled out to board. But you folks may want to amend it or adjust it.
You got it? Okay. So I can read it out.
1 second.
Question.
I believe this is not.
Yes, Alex.
I'm looking at it right now on the board update, the recommendations, the draft motions. The first to be resolved is the 65 grand. That's coming 65 and then the 5%. Those are two separate or the same one?
Same motion. So an additional 65,000 for the project cost, an additional 5% on the overall 315% as a contingency. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Okay. I think that's all the questions, hopefully, so I'll ask the question. So the motion is, be it resolved that the board approve an additional 65,000 plus tax funding for the SLC Capital Maintenance Fund to complete the SLC 36-3106 lounge project, and then be it further resolved that the board approve an additional 5% contingency on the entire project cost to ensure any future unforeseen increases or efforts can ensure the project complete funding by the SLC Capital Maintenance Fund. All those against the motion, please raise your hand. All those abstaining. And all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that passes by consensus. So move on to the general reports now. Thank you, Kumar, for the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, folks. I'll let you know about the ribbon cutting.
Okay, moving on to the reports. First is my report. Maybe in the interest of time, if you guys have any questions, I would love to hear them rather than me giving a presentation. Or if you prefer, I give a presentation, I can also do that. So what? The questions in the report.
Follow your advice.
Okay, yep. So just a brief overview of what sort of has been happening. I think the big thing, I can find where my own thing is.
Coming to send it.
So got it. Okay. I think the big thing has just been the stabbing which took place at Haggy Hall. Obviously, we've had to put a lot of things on hold and sort of, look back at, what we're doing as an organization and then what also we can do going forward. I think that we're going to be working with the university to make sure that they're, reviewing their policies and procedures to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. That's what I would probably say to that. Annual plan, obviously, it's been approved at the last board meeting, but sadly we haven't got much progress on it or a big report to come back to just because of the situation. The GDPA, which is the society out of Stratford, we met with them again, same sort of thing that we talked about in our last meeting with regards to the busing situation. So we're still getting quotes for providing busing through FedBus that the university is going to cover. And in addition, they had asked about the GRTU pass, which is something that Stratford students used to have, but in a referendum, they removed it probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And so they're coming back to us now saying that they want to have the UPass again. So it's looking like it's going to have to go to another referendum at Stratford. So we'll be in communication with them, just letting them know that they'll have to hold another referendum if they want to join the UPass again. Obviously, we had our pizza party, also known as the special general meeting yesterday, which sadly we weren't able to reach quorum, but we were able to give out pizza to the very hungry masses of UW. I think those are some of the most important things that I had on my updates. Are there any questions, Alex?
I have a curiosity. If the GBDA, they had that referendum and they join us, does that affect our pricing on the review cards?
I believe it should. Yeah.
Another question. What's the memorandum of understanding with the societies?
So the memorandum of understanding is, I wouldn't say it's a contract per se, but it's sort of an agreement that both sides sign so that we both know, you know, what each side does for each other and sort of the limits that we have for each other. So
I'm familiar on like a memorandum of understanding. I just didn't know what's it aimed at doing. I must have missed it. What's it aimed at doing?
Steph, do you want to give?
Yeah, it's mostly a byproduct of the fact that like before the Federation of Students existed, a bunch of the sub-societies existed already. So when formalized student society was being created, the university required them all to be underneath the same sort of entity. So in order to honor sort of the idea that each society is empowered to operate and run sort of in the way that they see fit, we have a memorandum of understanding. So outlining some of the stuff that they need to abide by because they are extensions of us, but certain allowances that they are entitled to, and also service provision levels.
Kevin, I think I had her hand up first.
Yes, for the general meeting, I'm just wondering, like, is it usually hard to hit quorum? Like, is it just a spring term thing, or because if like
even at the
perhaps we could you know, have like an online option? Like a lot of my friends were not on campus at the time. I know like we could hold proxies for them, but like they wanted like to participate.
Yeah. So yeah, generally speaking, recently it's been hard sort of to reach quorum. I think at the last general meeting, it took over an hour to reach 100 needed. There has during COVID been an online option, but I think that was entirely online. And I think there were conversations last year of whether general meetings should be offered online, in person, or a mixture of both. I'm sure Stephanie, if she wants to give an update on that.
Generally, it's always been a little bit tricky to get quorum. There's often been like a working group or whatnot to get better engagement for general meetings. The issue is just that it normally focuses on really dry stuff. And it's sort of a tricky forum to actually facilitate discussion and to be really representative of students. The one thing that I've noticed throughout the years is when you put something that is a little bit spicier on the agenda, and you end up with more people coming out. Originally, staff were also counted towards quorum, and quorum used to be 200. So we're seeing some of the effects of that. Right now, it's like 100. I'd say part of the error that we likely made here was it being the spring term and not putting another higher ticket attractive item on the agenda. So being more mindful of that would be important. I'll say that it's not, like we did what we set out to do, which was the audit wasn't prepared on time and we said we would make it available to students. It's unfortunate that we didn't have quorum quite there, but at the same time, I think we did follow through with our promise there. When it comes to the next GM that we'll have to hold to ratify the next directors and perform other business, we can definitely have conversations about it making hybrid. There's just some pros and cons to doing that that we can go over. The reason why we didn't do it last time, I think, was there was a lot of concerns about people being disengaged, not really listening to the conversation and understanding what they're voting for. So it was a mechanism for them to, you know, be more tuned into what's going on. But there's an argument for the other thing, and we as a board can decide that.
Sandra, I think, but we'll let Sandra speak first. She might have some comments to make.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Just in terms of process with your audited statements, you don't have to have those go ratified, Stephanie, at the annual meeting. Under ANCA, the board is accountable and responsible for approving the audited statements. You do give a report from the treasurer or from the on the financials at the meeting, but there isn't a ratification. Again, the only thing that the membership has to approve is the appointment of your auditors.
Yeah, they approved the appointment of the auditors, but the actual statements were get ready at the previous general meeting. So that was a promise made at that previous general meeting, was that another general meeting would be held to present them.
Yeah, but right. So you fulfilled that. You tried to have it, but in terms of approving the audited statements, it's the board's responsibility, not the membership.
Yes, we're not having them approve it. We're just presenting it to them.
Information. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks.
Sorry, but yeah, it was the previous board had said, well, if we can't present it, then we should still
do another one.
So then there was a motion saying that that was the intention.
Okay. Everyone's on the same page. That's.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Just to say,
was it previously before ANCA that there was a requirement to have the audit ratified at the general meeting? Because that's what I thought it was, because we always brought it to the general meeting because we thought we had to present it to the membership, and that maybe that's changed now. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was a mixed bag of practices, but it has changed with audit. If you think about it, the only ones who really know the ins and outs of the financial statements are the boards. So they are the boards or the corporation statements. So that's why they're approved by the board. Because of your size of your membership, you want to make sure that they are aware of what the financial situation, where things are from a transparency standpoint.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Do you have another question?
Yeah, like so is this just being canceled? Like, are we just going with the next general meeting and then?
So the bylaw change will go to the next general meeting. The audited financial statements will be recorded and provided online for students so that it is available to them.
What about the proxies?
So the proxies were just for that. So they wait. I think you have a question.
No, it was kind of similar. We might be getting quorum.
Alex, yeah.
Not that it's really any of my business. With the parking advisory committee, is there anything we can do involving?
Is there anything we can do? Meaning, like
I understand it hasn't been changed since 2000 and whatever, but is there anything we can do to not slam that into the general student population?
My understanding, nothing we can do. Like we could, we as an organization, if we wanted to see that change, it would have to be advocated for at the university, and then the university would have to make that decision, and it would go back to, I think, the board of governors. These are the ones who approve the current parking plan, which is about to be implemented.
Do the students know about the price hike? Is that not?
They do not, because it's still probably shouldn't be, it's still a little bit confidential, which is, so I would say, not to be discussed in public session right now. Yeah.
Maybe takeaway from today's media training would be perhaps promoting our own events, like our general meetings, more on social media. I realized that we weren't posting as much, and we were more pushing other events that were happening, which might have led to students just not seeing the post about the general meeting. So just actively promoting it to hit core.
That's maybe more of an operational question, but I don't know.
With regards to the stabbing and response, wondering if there's any steps you or the organization has taken to connect or empower general students, because we saw a lot of critiques going around that WUSA was more just being a mouthpiece for the university and wasn't present or responding to what grassroots initiatives and students were looking towards. And I say this just to not to garner shade, because I do understand that it was probably very tricky to respond to that, but wondering how that's been going, because it is a little bit concerning that students are saying that WUSA doesn't support students, and we need another WUSA that does support students.
Katie, do you want to?
Oh, you're going to pass it to me anyway.
Well, I would say that I agree. Like, we didn't. I think the main thing after the event was sort of to come together again as a community and sort of heal from the experience. I agree that we didn't really push a lot of grassroots effort that maybe the students believe that we should have been pushing. The only thing that I was aware of was the event that took place at Haggie Hall after the arts quad thing that the university put on. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one, sadly. Katie?
In terms of strategizing and kind of setting a direction and actually completing some stuff that we outlined in our statement for short-term and long-term stuff, there have been ongoing efforts to connect with our different WUSA services, and then also hopefully soon the university. But with the forum that's coming up on Monday, waiting to hear what their responses are to a lot of questions, and then holding them accountable moving forward is also a component that we're trying to factor in to our response and how we're planning to really hit the ground running on those short-term and long-term priorities and goals that we outlined in our statement. There will be discussions on it again tomorrow through a senior leadership team meeting, where hopefully we can look at more advocacy. Thank you, Sandra, for joining us. Sorry, Sandra has to leave. Thank you very much. But we are hopefully going to begin planning and strategizing more regarding that. I think just due to the nature of how sudden the event was and staff working on different things, it was a little bit harder to coordinate different meetings at different times, but more updates can be provided moving forward. So maybe clarify.
Okay.
So that's some comments, sorry, to that too. An important piece, I think, for this room that we have discussed is there is a lot of legal and organizational responsibility of how quickly we're able to respond, with us not having a lot of facts, the university is not handing that over in the moment. Police services, regional police are not sharing that information with us. And so a lot of the information that students were receiving on Reddit, I'll be honest, I found out through CBC, right? I got a notification on my phone. All of this was rapidly developing, and not until really the next day, shortly after we were able to release a statement, was for us to be able to kind of kick our gears into motion. We've identified where some of those gaps also may have been about how to communicate and what not, and we're revisiting that as a I think both as student engagement team, but also as comms team as well. Echoing Katie's points, we've connected with student societies, we've connected with all of our services essentially right away. connecting with other student leaders as well to check in and see how folks are doing. And I'll say this, and this is something that I've echoed with my team so far, is that I'd rather us be slow and thoughtful than quick and careless on something like this. That for us to be able to have impactful change in the long term and to change some of the systemic barriers and challenges that I think the university community as a whole faces, we do need to have a bit of that strategy and have that conversation and centralize some of the resources, because it's both establishing and holding accountable where the gaps may have been, but also about how we can build for the future. And so that's been done through collaboration with campus wellness and counseling services with drop-in sessions. We're in the process of developing some student leaders specific supports as well, and then continuing with more and more actions within the short and long-term action plans that were released within our statement. And so there's absolutely has been things being done. I think it's also important to highlight that many members of our community have been impacted on various different levels of this. And where that impacted them, some it was about a lack of communication, and that's what they're upset about. I think we can all agree, probably rightfully so. For others, it revisited a lot of trauma and harm that they've experienced through a hate-filled attack at gender identity and gender expression, specifically with at the 2S LGBTQ+ IA community, right? And so everyone has, I think it is having multiple different impacts from an event like this, and has multiple different solutions. And for us to be able to make sure that we're slow and thoughtful when we navigate through this, I think is really important. And we're taking, I would say, from all of the senior leadership team, from all of our departments, and Roy and Katie as well, we're taking it quite seriously. And it is a priority for us to continue to make sure that we are holding the institution accountable of where those improvements can be made and how quickly they can be. So I want to provide that for context and some of those pieces, and I think extenuating factors that have gone in and have been a part of conversations on the side.
Steph, you had your hand up if you want to speak first.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, thanks for that, Brian. I do, well, I guess I'm not as tuned in, but I did notice that in the email sort of sent out, we said that peer support hours weren't available. And I think that was a good choice. And I really appreciate that was there. I guess the question more that I'm posing, or thing that I'm bringing up, is what is WUSA doing to amplify grassroots movements and stuff that are going on, right? Because we focus a lot on our specific advocacy messaging, what we're doing, but a large part of, again, the university to do anything specific is the idea that we have the students behind us, right? And if we can't, we struggle to mobilize students. It's really hard to get them to do things. I've seen that this administration is a little bit more responsive to grassroots things that are happening. So it's a question of how do we connect to that part of our membership? And we're not there yet. We can get there. I guess I'm just bringing this up as feedback, that in reflection to what I saw, I know that there were some questions of where was WUSA with the grassroots movement that happened. So again, just as a director and an observer, I bring this up because I think we need to start asking those questions to ourselves a little bit.
Is that specifically to the, I forget the name, my apologies, but around that region grassroots movement?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was there the entire time, and we had some of our team members also there for the entire start to finish of that movement as well, to listen, take in feedback, commentary, and that was stuff that immediately also was translated to the services, to our student engagement team as well, and helped inform some of those pieces, and also a lot of the communication that I've shared with Rory and Katie, and where that is also supporting that advocacy strategy. So I absolutely hear it of that WUSA's name wasn't on that, and that we weren't potentially like forward-facing supporting, and I think that we can probably look at what the better strategy is moving forward when those pieces, but absolutely, like there was still support at the grassroots movement and the messaging, and that did not fall on deaf ears by any means, and it's continuing to fuel a lot of our advocacy efforts, and how we can loop those folks in and help continue to support those, I think is that's an important note as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, certainly. My apologies. I didn't realize that that we had sent folks there and that people had taken time to do that. Mm-hmm. So not saying that we necessarily have to endorse every message that needs to happen. That involves critical analysis, but it is reassuring to hear that folks did make time to be there.
Absolutely.
I guess I can just in regards to your concern stuff, since the meeting tomorrow is really also about strategizing, we can definitely bring up the point about our struggle to mobilize students and perhaps like what the best possibility moving forward in terms of connecting with students and support for students groups could be. In terms of advocacy and external stuff that I've also done my best to promote, I've had talked with Jill and David about what point we could actually focus advocacy related work under. And we're looking at point 3 of the annual plan, which is student facing concerns for equity, diversity, and inclusion under inclusion, what the official title is. But hopefully we can map that out tomorrow as well. But WUSA has also voiced support for our different statements. I've had an interview with the University of Ottawa, which you'll see, I believe, in my report tomorrow with Vivian, the chair, regarding the WUSA paper on LGBTQI+, that policy paper, and then as well as a little bit of an iteration on the attack on campus and what that means and how we can tackle that moving forward. So I guess you could say elevating that concept and that voice provincially. But Possibility Seeds, which is also an organization that focuses on gender-based violence prevention response and other issues found on campus, is holding a press conference next Monday, also regarding the attack on Waterloo, which I'll be attending. So hopefully that can also elevate the voices and concerns of students on our campus.
This is more like on the security side of things, but a couple of my friends told me that they have, I don't know if you guys know about WUSA. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have that downloaded on their phones, but it wasn't working. Like on the day of the incident, they weren't provided any like notifications or any like safety measures. So it's concerned about like
Yeah. So with okay. So with the app, the day of, they had been doing testing in the morning, and when they were doing the testing, it had worked. But when the actual situation happened, they tried to put out a notification and something went wrong. It took, I think, 90 minutes before they were able to send out that notification. As well, if you're not on campus, and by that I mean if you're not connected to the EDU Roam Wi-Fi, it won't send you any notification. You have to be on campus and connected to Wi-Fi for it to send you the notification. So I know the university, that's some of the things, that's what they're looking into. I think Vivek just sent out an email to everyone, I believe it was either today or yesterday, stating that they have a third party that's going to review the app and then also all of their safety procedures at the university to see what they can change and give recommendations for the future. And obviously, if you've seen, there's been some posters around campus for a change.org petition relating to that app. So it's something that I would argue is maybe a less effective way of getting in communication with students and other things out there. But we'll see what the university chooses to do after they get their report back. Are there any other questions?
Or can we try to zoom through the rest of the agenda and get some time and sometimes maybe?
ahead, Katie, with your report then.
Okay, so I will go pretty quickly through mine. I won't really go through the summary. I'll just go down to.
I have one point before you start. This is something just Sandra recommends, is that the reports are given to you beforehand. Please read through them. And then if you have any questions, that way we're not having to actually go through the report like point by point. Okay, go ahead, Katie.
All right, so I would say the most relevant stuff regarding updates for me is for youth groups. So finally, the advocacy priorities have been decided, which is housing, mental health, and student financial aid. Currently working with the executives on my team to produce a federal budget submission for youth group, which will be examined by our board at the next youth group meeting before August, and then submitted with that. And David has been providing assistance in that regards. WUSA, ongoing stuff for campaigns, HR, and let's say the press conference in collaboration with possibility seats. For the university section, that is just in regards to work that we're currently doing via the attack on campus. But Rory kind of summarized most of that. Municipally, working with different institutions to look at the new working groups of Town and Gown, which is food support and international student support or food aid. The exact names are a little bit lost on me, but seeing ways that we can strategize and best utilize the information that we have at hand to report back to those potential new working groups and encourage more collaboration between different community stakeholders, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'll open up to questions on anything else on my report. Nice.
What's SUDS?
SUDS? That's this about
Student Union Development Summit.
Yes.
One more time.
Student Union Development Summit.
It's essentially like opportunity for different student leaders at different student unions to go to like a conference, a summit, and develop their skills, learn more about other institutions and so forth.
Any other questions?
Never as long as Rory's.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions related to the executive director report? I know Suzanne's not going to be going through her report, so.
Second executive director report. It's the survey results from the things. It's a survey results from your report. Don't have a look at them. Suzanne, would you happen to know if there's any next steps for the reports? These things? Breaking here.
Because the sun was out when we started the meeting. I know the sun is out, you know.
I hope it rains.
I hope it doesn't
Which
rain.
one
until I
would you
get
like
back
me
by
to
five.
cook?
I guess.
Good lighting.
Daytime now.
Wait.
It's okay. People can come and ask. Do you have any questions? Okay. Yeah, I see that for the affordability report, at least, there's recommendations at the bottom of them. Wondering if that's something board or a committee of board should be endorsing, or I don't know, I guess I'm just wondering what next steps are. And also, Suzanne, can you find out whether or not these reports are going to be like publicly accessible?
Get back to you on the second part as well. I think
I'm pretty sure they were published publicly, sorry.
Already, I thought they went to the ownership.
Especially.
These went to the ownership consultation. I am sorry. I was looking for a link.
Yeah, I got.
Okay, so these have been approved at the ownership consultation committee then.
Both of those things have been answered. Lovely.
Yes.
I'm rushing through that. Here we go.
Okay, go.
On the advocacy report, in figure 3, the one we got back students were either somewhat disagreeing or strongly disagreeing was on, I know how to get in touch with someone at WUSA if I need to. Do you know if that's in relation to WUSA in general, or like operations or student leaders, or I don't know what they aren't getting in touch with? If it's us, the board, that's unreachable, or if it's like the turnkey desk is pretty accessible. So I'm not sure what a problem is.
This was distributed by survey to a random selection of students. So it would depend on how the individuals read the question and responded to it. I think that's just feedback in terms of having more clear questions or targeted questions. So the ownership consultation committee might identify, hi, we want to find out a little bit more about this. Can we do this in like a future survey? But yeah.
Any questions? Okay, then for the sake of time, does everyone mind if we continue on? Okay. Director reports. So hopefully all the directors went in and filled out their director reports. Yes. Yes, Steph.
Wait, I'm just double checking because I filled mine into a link that you sent, but now it's not here. Where did
I
it go?
know. Same thing happened to me. I will put the other link in the chat that is like the other version of this, but feel free to copy paste into the public one.
Okay, thank you.
Since we're doing, tell me if you can access it. I'm not sure. I think you should.
So I'm copy and paste my thing. I'm logged on to the Waterloo.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, so maybe I'll just cover some of the reports. Audit committee, no report, hasn't met yet. Elections and referenda committee, no report, hasn't met yet. Advocacy positions committee, report by me. We met June 27th, appointed me as chair, as vice chair. And the agenda completed is seen on the document itself. Main points of agenda that were completed include the call for nominations for chair and vice chair, review committee terms of reference, advocacy positions overview, advocacy stances, how it is done, intro to new housing stance, future plans. So chair, vice chair, governance manager, advocacy, stakeholder relations meet, prepare for direction of advo committee, prepare plan board goals, review previous advocacy policies and adopt relevant topics into updated advocacy stances outlined in the annual plan. I'll just read from them all, and then any questions is fine for those. Ownership consultation, report by me as well. Same people that were appointed, me as chair, vice chair. Covered agenda items include terms of reference, purpose, roles, and responsibilities. Presentation by Jordan, which also covered the survey results that we saw in Suzanne's report. What the representative survey platform is, announcements, adjournment. Ongoing work is there's a document where we're identifying issues, key challenges, priorities, and ideas that address concerns of board, specifically Jay's communication piece and other concerns regarding communication and board engagement, as outlined in the annual plan, which is create a board outreach plan, which is work that we're doing right now. And then hopefully we will get to report back to the board of directors with recommendations, ideally at the next board meeting, possibly with an update, and then maybe later on with confirmed or concrete recommendations. And governance committee, no report.
Okay. Committee of Presidents. Our next meeting next week. It's mostly just been focusing on the MOU so far, and also just sort of getting to meet all the different presidents. Okay. And the only thing with external committees is the undergraduate student relations committee. We have had 2 meetings so far. I've written up my report there. If you have any questions with it, I would answer them, but are there any questions? Not seeing any, can move on. We get sort of the individual reports. Obviously, many of the directors still haven't filled in their reports, which saddens me. Yes, Alex?
I had a little mini one. I just dropped it in now. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Yeah, I can see it at least.
Let me just leave off with that. Or not. I don't know if you're supposed to say anything or just leave it in there.
Yeah, I think, again, there's a lot of confusions around reports. I think the ideal would be that everyone would get it in early. And then if we had any questions, you could ask them. And you wouldn't have to go person to person all talking, because this is suddenly taking a lot of time when it could have been done beforehand. I would say if there's anything very important that you feel board should know, feel free to
The only thing is that in the tech committee, we're going through a little bit of discussion into streamlining the student information technology. The big one is Teams versus Zoom. Everyone's trying to figure out what the be-all end-all is. So hopefully, I have very low experience in committees, but maybe a decision be made on this.
Yeah, it's good. I think maybe for the directors who weren't able to get the report in, I would just ask you why that would be. If we didn't provide this report earlier, if we weren't clear with our instructions, if you don't have any committees, so you have no updates to give. I don't know. I'd love to hear how we can better streamline this process to make sure that the board is getting all the information it might need. Kevin, do you have any?
I think most of
This is something I might reach out to you all later after the meeting, just one-on-one, to sort of see if there's a better way this can be done. Okay. With that being said, I move we enter confidential session. Can I have a second for that? Katie? Okay, thank you. So there are no notices of motion that have been submitted for the next meeting, though I believe the budget will be hopefully done by that.
My hope is that by the end of this week, you will have a link to the budget and start having a look. We'll have a try and schedule a training session about budgets and then a couple open sessions for folks to drop in and ask questions so that hopefully on the 26th, we streamline the process.
Sounds good. Try and make sure you can make it to those sessions. Are there any other announcements? Not seeing anything. I call this meeting to adjourn at 8:06 p.m.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy California.
Thank you. Joke say hi.
I wonder if Jeff and Sam are like in the